Okay, yesterday I started talking about Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD. Um, I'm really hoping to be able to finish talking about it today, but we shall see. Yesterday I talked about what it was, how it affects people, how they behave, and the risk factors of it. So this is a very sensitive subject. So if you are triggered by very sensitive subjects like this, then this is a trigger warning for you guys. So yeah. Now, narcissistic personality disorder is not the same as, having just a big ego. It's just not the same. You can't be narcissistic just because you have a huge ego. Okay. You know, it, or just because you're proud of your appearance. Okay, that doesn't make you narcissistic. But there are things that do. Okay, now narcissistic personality is one of the least researched, least studied of all of the personality disorders, which is actually kind of strange when I think about it, because we all do it. We all walk around. It's a word that is thrown around so often that we kind of lose track of what it really is. We will call people we will name people, call people narcissistic just for being like peacocky, being self-absorbed, being a bit of selfish, very kind of whatever. Even if realistically it's not even close to being narcissistic. Just because they're proud of themselves or have a bit of an ego, we will call them narcissistic. So the fact that this is one of the least studied kind of shook me. It kind of like took me by surprise. I would have thought that, considering how easily we banned that word around without any real thought or consideration to its actual meaning, I would have thought they'd want to understand more about it. But apparently not. So a fact that it's one of the least studies means that they have that they don't understand, that they are struggling to understand a lot of its causes, okay, and actually how to treat it. Because they haven't studied it enough. Not only do they not understand what causes it, they are struggling to know how to treat it, which makes sense. Now, that is just the research community. The medical community, because of this, are extremely divided. Now, a lot of the personality disorders leave the medical community quite divided anyway, but with it being so little studied so little, it makes it really hard for them to actually like pinpoint anything. So the medical community are like, I don't know what to do with this. So the medical community are divided about the cause of it, or how to develop research. They don't know. They don't know where to go. I think the reason it's so sort of divided is because the medical community don't know where to go with people who are diagnosed with NPD. They don't know how to really kind of help them enough, where to go, what to do. There's no real true direction for them. But there has been a little bit of research done, and the research they have done, they found that there's a response to like combinations, like a combination of factors. Usually they found it's like 2 or more factors. So the research they have done, which to be fair is very little from what I found, they found it's to be like 2 or more factors, combination of factors that could cause it. So things like environmental and cultural, early life experiences, and the parent-child bond. And then of course there's the genetics, which, and they also think that NPD could develop as a response to like specific conditions, but so we've got a list. They came up with a list. They actually did come up with a list. So we've got things like traumatic events, which is kind of normal with personality disorders. Things like negligence and abandonment, again, very normal with personality disorders. But then we get into things like excessive criticism from a loved one, which actually would make sense because people with NPD have very, very low self-esteem and low confidence. And then put on this big show for everybody else. Okay. Living with parents or guardians who have mental health issues, again, that's pretty normal with people with personality disorders or any kind of other mental health issues. If they live with somebody who has it, or they have other family members that have other mental health issues or personality disorders, it puts them at much higher risk of developing them anyway. So yeah, I can see that one. Abuse, any kind. Yeah, so yeah, you can see that too. Pretty normal with mental health right across the board. It comes under the banner of traumatic events, I think. Oh, it can. And then we get things like discrimination. So this is where they start to really see a difference between NPD and a lot of other mental health issues or personality disorders, because actually this one doesn't come up at all. Just like, the excessive criticism doesn't really come up with any others. Discrimination is something that if you live with that, you can imagine the front you're going to have to put on. This I'm okay, you can't hurt me kind of front that you put on. You don't want people to think you're weak. So you put on this mask of, you can't hurt me, I'm okay, you can throw whatever you like at me, I'm better than you. So you can see how that could develop into like this, superiority complex. Now, me and my son, we were talking about this one, the excessive pampering and praising. Me and my son were talking about this one, and it makes sense that that is on that list, because if when you're growing up, or as you're growing up, you are pampered, you are praised. I mean, we live in a world right now where spoiling your children because we're gentle parenting, and all we're doing is throwing praise upon praise and pampering upon pampering of our children. The age of let's pamper and praise our kids for doing whatever they want. You can imagine that some of them, not all of them, some of them are going to grow up believing that everything they do, regardless of how little it is and how insignificant it is amazing and wonderful and so incredibly talented, even if the reality is totally different. I mean, as parents, we praise our children for everything anyway. We don't want our kids to think they have done a bad job when they produce a piece of artwork that with a little stick figure on it, age 5. We're not going to sit there and tell our kids that it looks awful. No, we're not. That's ridiculous. It's just not going to happen. People don't do that. Parents don't do that unless they're bad parents. Unless they're bad parents, they're just not going to do that. We're going to sit there and tell them that it's really lovely and really cute and we love it and it's brilliant. But if you're going to over it, and then they're going to like put it in a drawer and pretend it's like really lovely, or put it on the fridge for like a week and then take it down and we're like, oh yeah, we put it away, you know. And the reality is it's generally gone. Yeah, we put a few pieces away because they're really like memories, and the rest go in the bin. Otherwise we have like piles and piles of like yeah, just doesn't work, you know. But we tell them because that's what we do. We make them feel special because they're kids. As they get older, we give them a more realistic view of their work because they can handle it. If as they're getting older, parents are still telling them that that stick figure is incredibly amazing and they're doing an incredible job, even if they're like 13 years old, and realistically, it's not. I mean, I can draw a stick figure. I know full well I'm not that great an artist. And if somebody turned around to me and told me my little stick figure person looked like it belongs in a museum because it's so incredible, I'd slap them. I mean, seriously, there's something wrong with their eyesight if they think that. But if a parent is telling a 13, 14-year-old that their little stick figure person belongs in a museum because it's so incredible and they're so talented, that kind of thing is over excessive. It's excessive praise. It's excessive everything. And if they're doing it for every little thing they're doing, not just in one place, but in every aspect of their life, you know, every time they do anything, you know, I mean, I took one example, but it's across the board. If they do anything right across the board, it's one thing to do it when they're 5, 6 years old and they're drawing little stick figures. It's another thing to do it when they're 12, 13, drawing little stick figures, and you're telling them that they're Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and belong, you know, in the halls of fame. You know, it's excessive and it's praise that doesn't need to be there. You know, the reality of over excessive praise, over excessive pampering, you can imagine in that household that child will grow up believing that they are this incredibly talented, incredibly amazing person who's better than everybody else because they've never been told otherwise. They've never been given a reality check from people who love them. You know, the school are telling them one thing and their parents are overriding that by telling them that, you know, regardless of what subject it is, every time the school tells them they fail, their parents tell them they haven't. The school just don't understand them. You know, and instead of supporting the school and helping the child, they've told the school that they're wrong and told the child that the school doesn't understand them. And actually the school is wrong and they are amazing. You can imagine that what that will do, and you can kind of see that will build and build and build till that child becomes an adult and believes that every little thing that you do is above reproach. You know, so you can see it. And as we were discussing that, and we went into this was the discussion that me and my son had yesterday. Yeah, you know, yeah. It is, you can see it, and there are so many parents out there that will do it, and I can kind of see it happening with the gentle parenting if they're not careful. You know, I have a bit of an issue with the gentle parenting because children need boundaries and rules. But if they're not careful, that gentle parenting can turn that child into something way more and give that child a complex that they wouldn't have had if that parent did their job and gave that child rules and regulations and boundaries. You know, it goes both ways. You know, there are so many things that parents can do and not do. You know, no parent is perfect. Let's get that thing right now. No parent is perfect. I've made so many mistakes, it's unreal. So many mistakes, it's unreal. You know, no parent is perfect, and I have made many, many, many mistakes. You know, but I have a son that respects the rules, the boundaries, and the law. I also have a son who's extremely manipulative, and you know, that's on me. I can do that. You know, and knows how to use it. Yeah. But there's a lot of things that I know about my son that, if I'm not careful, he could. Yeah, he'd never hurt a thing, but he'd never hurt anybody physically. But he's definitely turning into his mother. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, realistically. But yeah, anyway. Thing is, like every condition, doesn't matter where you stand, whether it's a medical condition, mental health condition, personality disorder, mental health illness, it affects everybody differently. It affects everybody in different ways, in different severities. Not everybody will have the same symptoms, and not everybody will have the same severity of symptoms. Okay, it's that way across the board, and that's another reason which makes it really difficult for them to it makes it difficult for the researchers as well on this particular personality disorder. It makes it really difficult for them. They are struggling with this particular personality disorder because of the diversity of it. So let's get into some of the symptoms, shall we? I think I've rambled a lot on this one, but yeah, I might have to do a part 3 on this one. But this is why they're struggling, because there's a lot of symptoms. Okay, so the symptoms, shall we do this? Okay, they are having an unreasonably high sense of self-importance and require constant and excessive admiration. Yeah. They feel like they deserve privileges and special treatment. That's simple. That's what they need. That's what they deserve. They deserve it. Okay, they expect to be recognised as superior, even without the achievements. Again, kind of links into this concept of, I drew a stick figure, I'm a 20-year-old man, I drew a stick figure, praise me to high heavens because this is the work of Michelangelo. You know. Yeah. Exaggerate their achievements and talents. Again, this little stick figure is the work of Michelangelo, and I'm a 20-year-old man. See? They expect it. They preoccupy themselves with the fantasy of power, success, brilliance, beauty, or finding their perfect mate. Now, that I found was really interesting, because it's not about finding their true love, but a perfect mate. Now, that is something animals do. Animals find a mate. They mate, and they mate for life, or they don't mate for life. You know, that I found a little concerning. You know, people have this need to find their true love. You know, they look for love. Well, most people do. I'm not that interested, but you know, but most people look for their true love. You know, they want to settle down, they want to get married, they have their whole like white picket fence thing. They have that kind of image in their head. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but but they don't. People with NPD want to find a mate, the perfect mate. It's almost animalistic, and it's a little concerning. Okay. They believe they're superior. And they only spend time with people they perceive to be equally as special as them. So because they feel like they are so superior, anybody that they choose to spend time with, they believe are just as superior as they are, just as good as they are. You must be superior too if you're spending time with them. Sorry. They are highly critical of the whole like turn your nose up at people. They really do. They look down on anyone that they feel are not important. You know, they will criticize everyone and anything and just turn their nose up and look down on anyone that they don't feel are important. Okay. So, and then they go back to things like they expect special favours and expect people to do exactly what they say. So, you know, do what I tell you to do, or else. It is almost that kind of behaviour. You will do exactly as I say when I say. You know, that very controlling kind of behaviour. To the point where they will take advantage of others to get their own way. This ability or this inability or unwillingness to recognise the needs and feelings of others is also something they will do or can't do. It's a bit of a weird one, that one, because they're either unable to or unwilling to recognise the needs and feelings of others. That one's a bit kind of not sure whether they are unable to recognise them or they're just unwilling. Maybe some are unwilling and just some are unable. So some have no empathy and some with NPD are just unwilling to. Yeah, they're completely envious of others. The jealousy, the envy that they have of everyone else is, it's interesting because they also believe everyone is jealous of them. They envy them. I envy, not only do people with NPD believe that everybody envies who they are and envies everything about them, but they envy that someone with NPD will envy everybody else. We're nearly at the end. Okay. They behave in an arrogant way, which is not surprising. They will brag about everything and come across as completely conceited. Shock horror. that, you know, that is kind of what we expect from someone with narcissistic traits. That is kind of what we see with a narcissist. That is the absolute definition of what we class narcissism. When we talk about narcissism, that is what we see. It just is, you know. And they insist on having the best of everything, you know. So they'll have the best car, the best clothes, the best spa, you know, it's the best. You know, they'll buy the best drinks, they'll buy, you know, the most expensive, you know. And then on the flip side of this, there is a flip side. So we've got all of that, and then again we flip it over. We've got more. Okay. They have issues handling criticism. And if they get criticised, these are what can happen. There's a whole list of things that can happen if they get criticised, okay? They can become completely impatient or angry if they don't get the special treatment or the special recognition that they deserve, or they feel that they deserve. I mean, that can be quite dangerous. I mean, it's one thing to become impatient, it's another thing to become angry because they don't get what they think they deserve. You know, they have problems interacting with others, which doesn't surprise me, to be fair. If they don't like getting criticised, and they don't like things like people saying negative, you know, don't like negative like feedback, it's not surprising that they struggle to interact with other people, because again, they get easily slighted. You know, they feel easily slighted. You know, it's got to be difficult. You know, now they are really dangerous because they can react with rage or contempt. I mean, it's one thing to react with rage. I mean, to react with contempt, I mean, it's not very nice, but at least it's not as dangerous as rage. And belittling others to make themselves feel superior. And it's all in an effort. So even if they react with rage, it is an effort to be superior to others. So they are doing it. I mean, that in itself is dangerous. When they are doing this, so they're going to hit you so that they are superior to you. And that is so dangerous. You know, you've upset them, so they're going to hit you because they need to feel superior to you. I mean, you almost want the contempt and the belittling because that is not as dangerous as the rage. So it's not surprising that they have difficulties managing their emotions or behaviours. They can't deal with stress at all. They don't adapt very well to change. If they feel like they are going to fail, they generally will just avoid the situations. They will avoid any situation they feel they're going to fail at, just so they don't fail. They do have issues with things like suicide and self-harming, which is not something you'd ever expect from a narcissist, someone with NPD, but they do. It is something that you wouldn't expect from them because they feel depressed because they can't be perfect, and they have secret feelings of insecurity, shame, humiliation, and fear of being exposed as a failure. You know, and because, I mean, that is insane. I mean, you've got all these symptoms of one condition, and then you wonder why it's so difficult for them to not only treat it, but research it, you know, to actually come up with ways to find what causes this. I mean, it's an incredibly insane condition. It is. It's that two-faced coin. Somebody with narcissistic personality, it's like a two-faced. It's like a coin, two faces, two sides. But I am going to have to do a part 3 because we're now at 30 minutes and I've still got quite a bit to do. So I'm going to have to do a part 3 to finish this off. Although part 3 won't be that long, I'm going to have to. So yeah, I will finish this off tomorrow. And I shall see you later.